Hey, good morning, everybody. It's Ms. Corcoran, and we're going to do section 3 of chapter 3, and we're going to be talking about carbohydrates. In class, I did it all in one day, but I think that screencastify would be way too long, so I'm going to post an individual screencast for each of the major biomolecules that we're going to be talking about. So the main function of carbohydrates is that it's our source of energy. It gives us energy. We are not really made of carbohydrates. We're made of proteins, we're made of phospholipids and other lipids, and we have nucleic acids, but we use carbohydrates as our main source of energy. The monomer is a monosaccharide. This is just a fancy name for one sugar. Glucose is the most famous monosaccharide, and I'm going to step over here. Hopefully you can see this. Glucose actually, let me see if I learned a new trick. Let's see if it works. Let's see. I can get a little bit bigger. Okay. So monosaccharide, we have glucose, and it is C6H12O6. Sugars are going to be represented by rings, generally speaking. This sugar, this monosaccharide is one sugar, and it's six-sided. It's a hexagon. It has 6 carbons. This is a 5-carbon sugar because there's an O there, and that would be ribose. Okay, so we're going to represent sugars as rings in our drawings. And on your quiz coming up, you're going to have to be able to identify your functional groups and your molecules. So for example, page 47 in your book, you need to know all of those functional groups. If you haven't read your book, I'm telling you, your book is the best. And it really does a good job with the diagrams. If I put them in the PowerPoint, they're important, but if you never read any text whatsoever in your book, at least read the diagrams. We're going to come back to this in just one second. Let me see if I can minimize myself without losing myself. Okay, good. It is a good trick. All right, examples of monosaccharides. We have ribose right here. This is written in its linear form, but like I said, most generally, they're going to be in rings when they are in an aqueous solution. When 2 monosaccharides join together, it's called a disaccharide, okay? The bond that forms is called a glycosidic linkage. You don't need to know the numbers of the carbons, but you need to know that when one monosaccharide joins another, it's called glycosidic linkage. And we already have learned that when 2 monomers join together, it's through a process called dehydration synthesis, where we actually squeeze out a molecule of water. And you can see here where the atoms come from that make up the water molecule. So I'm going to draw, sorry for my technical slowness. Okay. I'm going to draw, what do I do with my marker? There's one sugar that's showing up. Here's another. We're going to squeeze out water, and the bond that forms is called, does that blue show up? Kind of, I'm going to mark it in black. That bond that you need to know is glycosidic linkage. Cannot spell glycosidic linkage. It's really important for all of our macromolecules. You need to know the bonds. You already know the one that forms between 2 amino acids. You learned it in Bio 1. It begins with the letter P, but we'll talk about that when we do proteins. So let's just imagine that I keep adding and I'm building a polymer, which would be many sugars joined together. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to join 5. Do all 5 show up? Good. And so I'm going to color in my bonds here, all of my glycosidic linkage. What is the chemical formula for a polymer with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 glucoses? It's kind of a tricky question. Think about this. What you want the answer to be is 5 times everything. So you want it to be C30, H60, and O30. Not showing up. Yes, that's what you want it to be. But remember, every time two monomers come together, we're squeezing out of water. So we lose a water here, we lose a water here, we lose a water here. So I'm going to go ahead and fill all those out. So we have 2, 4, 6, 8 hydrogens that we've lost. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4 oxygens. So our chemical formula for this polymer would actually be C30, H52O26. It's really important that you understand this concept, because if you were asked to come up with the chemical formula for any polymer, you just need to remember that every time a bond forms, it's through dehydration synthesis, we're squeezing out of water, and we are going to have the molecule less however many water molecules that we lose. Okay, so now let's talk about the types of polymers there are. First one, actually polysaccharides are polymers of sugar. So poly just means many, saccharide means sugar. First one you need to know is starch. Starch is the energy storage molecule for plants. Plants make carbohydrates in photosynthesis, and they don't use them all at one time. So they're going to need to store them away. If you've ever eaten a potato, you have eaten a full storage little ball of starch. Rice is starchy, wheat is starchy, corn is starchy. Those are all storage polysaccharides. Excuse me. We can break down starch. Starch's other name is amylose. We have an enzyme called salivary amylase that breaks down amylose. We also have pancreatic amylases that break down amylose. So we can easily digest starch, and we have a long chain of sugar. We start breaking the bonds as we digest. So if we have starch, once we break it down, we're going to have a bunch of sugar flowing through our blood. Okay, the next one you need to know is glycogen. Glycogen is short-term energy storage for animals. So if you are going to participate in some sort of endurance event, maybe you've got a big soccer game the next morning, or you're running a half marathon or a 5K or whatever, you might participate in carbo loading the night before, where you eat complex carbohydrates. Your body's going to break them down into individual units, and then you've got the sugar flowing through your blood. You don't need it while you sleep. Your body's going to pack it away in your liver, which sits right here behind your stomach, and it's going to store it in the form of glycogen. And then the next day, when you're in the middle of your game and you're out running around and your breakfast has been consumed literally up in your mitochondria, your body's going to be like, we need some more energy. Let's break down that glycogen. Let's push the sugar into the bloodstream. And so that sugar can then be used in the mitochondria to make more ATP. So glycogen is our short-term energy storage. Cellulose is another type of long polymer, put my bonds back, of sugar, and it actually composes the cell walls of plants. It is rigid, and it's different than starch or glycogen because of the position of the bonds. You do not have to know this. I just want you to hear it because it's kind of interesting. So let's come down here and take a look. This is one example where you see starch is kind of, it branches a little bit, glycogen branches a lot, but cellulose is long and fibrous, and it actually bundles together into these microfibrils, which are really structurally strong, and they build the plant cell wall. Here's the bonding, and here's what's different. Once again, you don't need to know this. It's just kind of interesting. This is the glycosidic linkage in the starch. So you see that, and I know there's probably a chemistry definition for this, but it's above my pay grade. All the bonds are in one direction. The bonds here in cellulose go up, go down, go up, go down. And that changes basically the structure of the molecule, and it makes it indigestible for us. We do not have an enzyme called cellulase at all that can break it down. Cellulose is insoluble fiber. Here's another diagram again that shows it's a very long, linear, straight molecule, and it can be fibrous in nature versus these are kind of branching. So what does that mean? Why do we care? Well, your parent maybe sometimes has said, oh, you feel a little uncomfortable in your tummy? Maybe you need to eat some more fiber to help you go number 2. Okay, what they're really saying is you need to eat some plant cell walls because you can't break them down. They just slide right through your digestive tract, and anything that's kind of stuck in there, they will bring it with it. Organisms that are herbivores they can't break it down either. They don't have the enzymes. So they have symbiotic relationships with microbes in their gut that actually can break the cellulose down. So kind of a fun fact. The last polysaccharide we have is chitin that you're going to talk about. And chitin is what makes up the the exoskeletons of insects. It is a structural polysaccharide. So we have two storage, starch and glycogen, and then two structural, cellulose and chitin. Okay, all of them are polymers of sugars stuck together by glycosidic linkage. And that brings us to the end of the carbohydrates.